the first thing that comes to our mind is that, okay, we have a bullish candle, and then we have the bullish candle opens from the bottom and it closes at the top. Someone who's very, very new, this is something very new and I think these basics are really important. So now when you have a bullish candle, it will have two wicks. So when we talk about liquidity wicks and ranges, so this is a liquidity wick. In a bullish candle, a liquidity wick is at the bottom, which means that the bullish candle tried to go down. Let's say it tried to go down, it formed a liquidity wick, which means it grabbed some liquidity or it grabbed some fuel to continue moving up, and then it created a range at the bottom. So whenever a bullish candle is creating a range at the bottom, a range at the top, this means that, okay, now there's a very high chance for the next candle to continue moving bullish, which is why we break down the candles into liquidity wicks and ranges. Next, we have your bearish candle, right? Now, the bearish candle opens at the top and it closes at the bottom. And when we talk about the liquidity wicks and the ranges on bearish candles, we have the range at the bottom because, price is obviously moving down. And then we have the liquidity wick, which is at the top. So whenever you talk about liquidity wicks, these are what liquidity wicks are. Liquidity wicks are basically movements of candles in the opposite direction. That's what liquidity wicks are. I have a little story to tell. My good friend, he started trading in the 1990s. This is a very long time ago. So what they used to do was they used to get prices. They used to get prices every 15 minutes. So now check this out, right? Just like visualize this. So you're there sitting at the screen, you're getting prices every 15 minutes. So let's say that he would get a price, let's say once he get a price and the price would be at, let me just remove this. And the price he would get would be at 100, right? He would get price at 100. And he would write this down, okay, I got a price at 100. And they would have this math paper, that those papers like with boxes on them. So that's what they would have, like grid papers. So he would get a price at 100. And in that 15 minutes or in that 1 hour time frame, he would get a closing price. So he would get an open price at 100, a closing price he would get at 150. Now you have two prices. Now in those two prices, what he would also get is the lowest price. So the lowest price he would get would be 80, and the highest price he would get would be, let's say, 200. So when this would used to happen, they would draw a candle. Does this make sense? Right? So they would wait an hour. They would get an open price. Okay, we got an open price at 100, a closing at 150, a low at 80, and a high at 200. So they would wait. They would wait a couple of hours or a couple of days to draw candles. They were drawing candles this way, and they were really waiting. They were looking at patterns, and they were really waiting to see that, okay, what are the candles saying based on the fact that, okay, where can the next price go? Or where can the next candle form? This was the basics how candles were formed, because you would just sit and you just wait for the prices to come in. You would draw candles, you would wait a whole day, and then you would have history. Right? Then you would have history on the charts. And once you had that history on the charts, then you could say, okay, based on the 2 days of me drawing candles, now I can finally take a trade. Right? But now when we have our platforms, we have CTrader, we have our MetaTrader, it's really easy. It's really easy to take a trade. It's really easy to execute a trade. And I think these systems are meant for us to fail, because when you have your systems on, now you can execute trades within a few seconds. Within a few seconds, you can put money at risk. And it's really easy. It's really harmful too, because back in the day when someone said, okay, hey, you have to sit down and draw candles for a day, man, no, not many people will be willing to do that. They'll say, oh no, it's a waste of time, whatever, this and that. But now it's really easy, so you have to be very careful. Now you have all these weapons at your hand that you can put money at risk. You have leverage. You can open lot sizes. Man, you can flip accounts from $1,000 to 2,000 and 5,000. You can flip those accounts, but it comes with a lot of responsibility. And that responsibility is that how are you going to manage yourself? You know, are you going to fall into that greed? Are you going to fall into that fear of, like, let's say, losing and making money? So that's going to be something really important. We have Nathan that is unmuted. Nathan, can you mute yourself? As I'm going to really appreciate that. And also Brian Miller there as well. Okay, perfect. So let me just remove this from here and let's continue on to candlesticks continued, right? So basically what we talked about were basic candles, right? So now what we're going to talk about is candles without wicks and candles with wicks, right? So candles without wicks basically means that there's no range for the next candle to fill, right? When you have candles that have wicks, that means that the next candle can potentially go in that same direction. But when you have candle with no wicks, then there's no range. So usually when there are no wicks on the candles, there's a 50-50 chance that price will move where you want it to move. For example, let's say you have a bullish candle and this candle has no wick on the top. So if this candle has no wick on the top, this means there's no range for the next candle to move up. Then there's a 50-50 chance that the next candle may move up or it may move down. You can look back on the charts and you can backtest this. There's going to be very less probability that the next candle is going to move up. If you look at a candle that has a wick on the top, then there's a very high probability that the next candle is going to continue moving in that same direction. Right? Now, at the same time, let's say you have price moving bearish, right? You have price moving bearish and the candle has no wick at the bottom. So when a candle has no wick at the bottom, this means that there's no range for the next candle to go down. Now there's a 50-50 chance that the next candle can essentially go down or it may start going up. Right? So whenever I encounter a candle with no wick at the bottom, I look at that and say, man, okay, there was volume there. The candle was a solid bearish candle, but the candle had no wick at the bottom. So to me, I'm going to say, well, if there's no wick at the bottom, then there's no range, which means the next candle, it may not continue down. It may start going the opposite way, but sometimes the candles do start heading where you want to go. So that's a 50-50 chance. So when you're trying to trade, you're looking at the candles when you have wicks. Let's go back here. When you're looking at the candles, you're looking for these wick ranges. When price is moving up, you're looking at the wick at the top. When price is moving down, you're looking at the wick at the bottom. Because when you have wicks, this means there's a very high probability that that price will continue moving in that direction. Now, in the same way, let's say we talk about a bullish candle that has no wick at the bottom, right? And it has a wick range at the top. What this means is there's a lot of volume in the candle. When a candle has a lot of volume, now when is the time of the day when there's going to be a lot of volume in the candles? When you have your market opens, when you have news events, when you have, let's say, special speeches, those are the times when there's going to be a lot of volume in the candle. So when you have a bullish candle with no wick at the bottom, this means the price didn't even attempt to go down. There was so much bullish pressure. There were so many buyers that price didn't even attempt to go down. It just continued to go up. In the same way, if you have a bearish candle with no wick on the top, this means that price didn't even attempt to go bullish. Price was moving down with so much ferocity that it didn't even have time to continue going up. It didn't even create a liquidity wick. That's what these candles mean. So it's very important to look at candles when they have no wicks. Because when you're looking at a candle that is bullish, once again, with no wick on the top, this means there's no range, which means that price went up and it just closed at the spot and it didn't even go up. So now there's a 50 chance that it might go up or down. And the same way, if you're looking at, let's say, a bullish candle with no wick at the bottom, this means there was a lot of bullish pressure. You need to be very cognizant of this fact, like, when you're looking at the charts, when you're zooming in, if you're looking at the candles, it's very important that you look at this stuff. Because, like a lot of times when we're looking at something like this here, can you guys see my mouse? Like I've been moving my mouse. Okay, perfect. Yeah, you can see my mouse. So let's say if you're looking at this candle here on the charts and you're like, okay, man, this is bearish. It has no wick at the bottom, so price is going to move down. But then there's a 50-50 chance it might move down. So this is something what I've learned by looking at the charts, by losing based on these candles, because I would look at this and say, oh, hey, there's a lot of momentum here, but there's no range. When there's no range, when price is closing like this is like price is creating a support. So it's very important to make sure that that's understood. Okay, so let me just check this one thing here. Everything's go. System is looking good. Perfect. Um, awesome. So now we talked about candlesticks. We talked about market sessions. We talked about times to trade, and we talked about risk.